The latest game of the year in the SEC involves Kentucky. How about that? The Cats at 6-0 travel to Athens to take on number 1 Georgia, coming off that 42-21 win against LSU. We got Kevin McGuffey on the line to talk Kentucky football. You can catch Kevin at Last Word on College Football. Kevin, you got your blue on, and you got a big smile on your face. So 6-0 feels good.
Yes, sir. It sure does. Kentucky 6-0 for the first time since 1950. If you go back through the annals, that's when Bear Bryant was still here. That 1950 team was the team that ended up beating Oklahoma in the Sugar Bowl and was later declared national champion. But yeah, 6-0, 4-0 in the SEC for the first time since 1977. And yeah, I'm rocking the Kentucky blue today, and sure sign that things. How people are excited up here is that tomorrow night is Friday night, as we're talking about this, is Big Blue Madness for basketball, UK basketball, and literally no one is talking about basketball. So, in Lexington in mid-October, in years past, everybody's like, okay, well, let's move on. How are the basketball Cats going to do this year? But yes, it is just it's pretty great. Pretty great atmosphere up here. Just really, really excited, and everybody is looking forward to Saturday. And obviously, right now Georgia is the measuring stick, and Kentucky wants to see how they measure up.
Yeah, people can wait on basketball. Basketball is going to be around until the end of March, maybe even into April, possibly. Well, so let's embrace the football here.
Yeah,
6 games down, 6 to go.
Yeah, fingers crossed when we get there for Kentucky basketball. So they're due for a good season, I think, too. But we'll see how that goes when we get there. But like I said, yeah, right now let's talk. We're all about football.
So the performance mighty impressive against an LSU team that's struggling, but still ultra talented, loaded in its roster of top 5 to 10 recruiting classes. So Vegas anticipated a close call, despite, again, 2 teams headed in different directions in terms of the standings. But, man, Kentucky really poured it on offensively for the first time against a quality opponent this year.
Yeah, you're exactly right. 475 yards total offense. Will Levis, quarterback, was responsible for 5 of the touchdowns, had 3 through the air and 2 on the ground, and was named, I think it was the Walter Camp Player of the Week, nationwide. So pretty exciting thing there. And the biggest thing that you and I have talked about is that there were no turnovers. I think it was the first game all year that Levis hasn't thrown an interception. First game without any turnovers, and the Cats jumped out early and got out to 35-7 lead, and then kind of let up off the gas a little bit, and then LSU got back into it, and then they put it away with a Rodriguez touchdown there at the end. And if this team can play like that, and obviously you got to limit the turnovers, and maybe nobody thought Texas A&M could beat Alabama. I certainly didn't, and we saw what happened there. So lose whatever cliche you want. That's why they play the game. You got to decide it on the field. All that good stuff. So, Kentucky thinks that they can go in and play with Georgia and give them a good game and possibly beat them.
Maybe the best indicator that Kentucky's got a shot in this game is that if you look at the Florida game, Kentucky was outplayed on the stat sheet, but of course made the big plays in the key areas to win the game. This was a game in which Kentucky didn't throw it a lot, but when they threw it, they were extremely efficient. 14 of 17 for Will Levis for $145, 3 touchdowns and no interceptions. And they're going to need, not that they want to get away from who they are, but they're going to need to make some plays in the passing game. They're going to need to be efficient and maybe occasionally explosive in the passing game against Georgia.
Oh yeah, you're definitely right. I think, as you said, the one thing that was noticeable in that LSU game was that Levis was much more consistent on those maybe 5 to 10, 12-yard passes. A lot of those interceptions that have happened this year, interceptions and drops, he throws the ball so hard that it bounces off the receiver's shoulder pads or off their hands, and then you get that's how you get those interceptions. I think, yeah, I think maybe Wandale Robinson, Josh Ali won't be playing again this week. So look for like an Isaiah Epps. Obviously they're going to be keying on Robinson, but maybe look for like an Isaiah Epps or the tight ends, Brendan Bates, Justin Rigg, Isaiah Cummings. They had some good. They all did some good things against LSU. Yeah, I think you try to do that. Maybe try to get those 8 to 10 yard passes, and the biggest thing is then maybe establish that pass game a little bit, and then you have Rodriguez, our guy. You talked about him, Cavassier Smoke. He had a big game, big game against LSU, over 100 yards, and but of course that, as we know, running the ball is Kentucky's strength, and stopping the run is Georgia's strength. So they're averaging like a ridiculous, what is it, like 2 yards a run or something like that on defense. So the using another cliche, the irresistible force, the immovable object, kind of thing. But if you go back and look, Kentucky's actually had pretty good success, decent success against Georgia. The last couple of years they've run for, I think, only one of the few schools that's actually gained 100 yards on the ground. You go back, 2 years ago, they don't have a whole lot to show for it, because they haven't scored a touchdown since 2018. 2 years ago, they played in a monsoon in Athens, and Lynn Bowden ran for, I think it was 99 yards. He was a yard short. And then I believe Rodriguez cracked the century mark against them last year. But so Kentucky's actually had some decent success running the ball. So, like I said, Kentucky's not going to get away from who they are. I think you're going to see a lot of running game, but ideally, if they get that mix or that combination like they had against LSU, I think they can certainly make things interesting, or at least make Georgia sweat a little bit.
Georgia, number one in the nation in scoring defense, giving up about 5 points per game. Number one in the nation in yards given up per game, 201. Number two in the nation, Wisconsin's actually a little bit better, giving up about 60-some rushing yards per game. And then beyond the numbers, you have to watch these guys play. My goodness. The Clemson game right out of the gate gave us an indication, and Clemson has struggled on offense, so this is not a typical Clemson offense, but basically Georgia held them to a field goal. And this Arkansas game most recently was a game where Arkansas was coming in riding high, and since then has scored 51 points against Ole Miss. The week after, they go to Georgia, and my goodness, again, it goes beyond the statistics. The numbers tell a certain part of the story, but to watch the games, the Georgia front seven and front four in particular is so devastating on a majority of these plays. They don't even let the play develop. They're just pushing guards and tackles into each other and into the backfield and just disrupting the play before it even gets started.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And as I said, that's going to be one of the biggest, you can say that for every game, that, up front is going to be a big battle. But you think about Kentucky, who has one of the best offensive lines, in the country, not only in the SEC, but in the country, but Darian Kennard and Dare Rosenthal and Luke Fortner and those guys up front. Maybe, as I said, Kentucky's had some success the last couple of years, so maybe, they can get that little bit of push and get, 3-4 yards, just kind of keep the ball, and then keep the ball away from Georgia. But that's definitely going to be something to watch. If Kentucky can get a little traction in that running game, I think, they'd be able to keep things interesting. So, and then obviously they have to avoid the turnovers. And of course, I think the Arkansas game, I think penalties kind of killed the Razorbacks, because it's so, Sanford Stadium, it's, 90,000 people. It's going to be loud. Kentucky hasn't had, they've only had, they haven't had that environment really to play in this year. So with the crazy fans in the stands and everything. So, that'll be something to watch out for as well.
Yeah, you would think that Kentucky's going to need to generate offense in any conceivable way that it can. And to its credit, they do have, Will Levis. We talked about the efficiency throwing the ball, 14 of 17 in the last game against LSU, but he obviously is a guy that's also mobile. So him picking up a key third down conversion with his legs here and there, he may not be able to run it for 75 yards like he did last week against LSU, because that's going to be some tough sledding. But again, to your point about just keeping the football, moving the chains, he could be key in converting a couple third downs. A weapon like Wan'Dale Robinson, as unique as he is, getting him in space, maybe they can cut him loose a few times.
Mhm.
Those types of things. They need everybody chipping in.
Oh yeah, definitely. All hands, all hands on deck. Maybe even, maybe even a couple of, why not? What do you have to lose? Maybe a couple of crazy, gadget plays or something. Maybe a quarterback, wide receiver, toss the ball to Robinson, and then the old Levis, throw it to the quarterback down the field. Like I said, they literally nothing to lose in this game, and honestly, a lot of people, it's not just talk. I think it's probably the biggest game, certainly in recent Kentucky football history, and maybe in, some people say it's the biggest game ever. Now I don't know. I don't know if I go that far, but it's definitely, with right now, just, which you and I have talked about before, considering where this program was when Mark Stoops took over, and where it is now, it's, it's just light and day, and 4 years ago, we were in this kind of in the same situation where Kentucky was playing Georgia for the SEC East title. And obviously, I think, that as great as that team was, and, Georgia's 2018 was also obviously really good too. I think, Kentucky's obviously in a better place now. And I think they're better equipped to go up against Georgia. And if the game honestly was at Kroger Field, you might say Kentucky even might have the puncher's chance. But I said, yeah, you just kind of, whatever, empty out your playbook, things you haven't seen, because as we talked about going back to the summer, we've never seen everything. I'm sure Liam Cohen has got some things that, in his playbook, maybe that he learned from the Rams, or, somewhere that, would not be surprised at all to see them come out on Saturday and just throw anything and everything at this Bulldog defense and see if they can get some momentum going. I think it's the biggest thing. Georgia has been so good in the first half that they've just, they've jumped on people, and run out to big leads, and then just kind of, in the second half, the other opposing team is trying to play catch up, and then, that's when you lead to your turnovers and mistakes and everything. So I think Kentucky can keep it close, for a half. Then, who knows? We might, we might have us a ball game.
There's only 4 other Kentucky teams that have started 6-0 in a season. So we've got 1898. 1903, 1910, and 1950. So
yeah, back in the good old. I don't even know if they were called. I don't even know if it was the University of Kentucky back then, but it was like Kentucky College or something like that. But yeah, like I said, there's 4 times, and only one in modern times. From 1950, just tells you what kind of success they're having right now, and yeah, like I said, and then first SEC. First 4-0 SEC start since that great season in 1977, and it's going back. It's a shame what happened with the NCAA and violations and stuff, because that Kentucky team probably would have won the SEC and been probably gone to the Sugar Bowl that year. That's one of the great what ifs with Kentucky football that could have happened. What could have happened with that team had they been able to go to a bowl game that year. But as I said, we're in some rarefied air with Kentucky football right now, and I see no reason why, even if they do lose on Saturday, you're still looking, I think, at worst a 10-2 season, or 11-1. I still kind of raise a flag at that Mississippi State game in a couple weeks. Some people told me I'm crazy, which is fine. That Kentucky they'll beat Mississippi State, but if you go back and look, Kentucky has struggled mightily when they go down there, and then and I have to say now the Tennessee game kind of has me a little concerned, because all of a sudden in the last 2 weeks they are playing really, really well, and and Tennessee fans would love nothing more than to ruin Kentucky's chance at a major bowl game. So, but if Kentucky takes care of business, I think you and I talked about this last week. There's no reason why they shouldn't be. I have them in the Citrus Bowl right now in my bowl predictions, and don't see any reason why they, the Sky, they could go even further now with, if they finished 11-1, say, Sugar Bowl, Peach Bowl, something like that, and how much fun would that be celebrating New Year's in New Orleans or Atlanta, somewhere like that. So
Kentucky football success has been sparse enough. Sorry, Kevin, but
that's
it's
okay.
been sparse enough that I'm looking at a top five list of the best teams in Kentucky history, and the 4 and 5 teams went 8 and 5.
Hmm.
And so the number 3 teams in 1984 at 9 and 3, and then the 2 teams that you referenced, the 1977 team that was on postseason bowl ban by the NCAA at 6 and 0 in the SEC, 10 and 1, as you talked about, top 6 in the nation, and then the 1950 team that had a number 7 final ranking in one poll, but had a co-national championship, won the Sugar Bowl, won the SEC 11 and 1, 5 and 1 under Bear Bryant in 1950. So if they would win this game against Georgia, and then depending on what happens after that, it could turn out to be the biggest game in the history of the program.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I think if I did the thing for Last Word a couple years ago, picking picking Kentucky's greatest wins, and the top two were was the 2007 win over LSU when they were number one, and then the second one was that 1950 Sugar Bowl. But yeah, if they were to pull this off, that would be just that one would vault right to the top. So, and then if you're looking for a little history, we always talk numbers. Kentucky's 3-14 all time against number one teams. So the other win, they beat Oklahoma, who was ranked number one in that Sugar Bowl, and then the win against LSU. But then in 1964, Kentucky was kind of marginal back then, but they went into to Oxford and knocked off number one Ole Miss in 1964. So that's their other win against the number one team. So the 3-14 all the time. Of course, recently they've played Alabama a couple of times, ranked number one. So those haven't gone so well. But as you said, a win here definitely would vault to probably the biggest win in school history. And then they would be knocking on the door. I think I don't know they would make the top four, but I think they definitely be knocking on the door. Of the college football playoff. And you and I have been doing this for a few years now, and who would have ever thought we were going to be at this point? But but they have to win, and even if they don't win, like I said, they're still in line for a huge, another major, a major bowl game, which it'll be the sixth straight bowl game under Stoops. They're already, and that's another thing we always talk about bowl eligibility. In years past, fingers crossed that Kentucky will get the 6 wins and be bowl eligible, but here we are 6 weeks into the season and they're already bowl eligible. So you don't have to worry about that now. You're just, each week and each win, you're just, enhancing your bowl chances. So like I said, I have them in the citrus right now. I know a lot of people I've seen other places, Peach Bowl, Sugar Bowl. I wasn't quite ready to make that jump yet because I actually bumped Alabama out of the playoff picture after their loss. But, as we've seen many times before, Alabama or another team has lost, and then boom, 2 weeks they're right back up there. So,
yeah, I can't speak for the AP or the coaches polls, but I know one ranking that would definitely have Kentucky in the top 4, if not higher, with a win over Georgia.
Yeah. I was going to say, now where did you have them this week in your in the rankings that really count, the ones that make sense?
I believe they're number 7.
I thought it was 7. Yeah. I thought it was 6 or 7, but I meant to go back and look at that before we started here. But yeah, like I said, it's just a great time right now to be a Kentucky football fan, and Lord knows we've suffered enough over the years, and it's really, like I said, it's really great to see what's going on with this program and what Stoops has built. And I think you and I've talked about this before. I think at the end of the season, people, other schools are probably going to come knocking, whether it's like a Miami, a Florida State, which he has ties to both of those schools. And, but I think Mitch Barnhart and the administration will do what they have to keep him, to keep him here for as long as possible. Like I said, this is ninth year now, so from where he was, where this program started to where it is now is just literally night and day.
Got Kevin McGuffey on the line from Last Word on College Football, breaking down Kentucky football. 24-point underdogs against Georgia on the road as an undefeated matchup in the SEC Eastern Division. And one other concern here, something that you brought up before we started to record, LSU's Tyrion Davis-Price totaled 147 yards on the ground, 6.7 yards per carry, a couple touchdowns. We know what Georgia's ground game looks like. It's devastating, and Kentucky has some concerns up front.
Yeah, we talked about last week with Marquand McCall, the big guy inside in the middle of the nose guard position, who's had an injury and is going to be out for a few weeks. And now another guy on the defensive line, Octavius Oxendine, who's an in-state player from North Hardin out near Elizabethtown. His had played really, really well the last couple of weeks, was actually just named, I think, one of the SEC defenders of the week. Turns out he's got a knee injury. I think it's not an ACL or MCL. It's like a meniscus, but he's going to be out for the rest of the season. So Kentucky, is going into this game without two of their three starters on the defensive line, and that does worry me. Now, like I said, Justin Rogers has played well in McCall's absence. Josiah Hayes behind him. He had a fumble recovery against LSU after DeAndre Square stripped the ball early in the game. And then on the other side with the defensive tackle, you have Abule Abadi Fitzgerald, who's going to he's listed as number one on the depth chart now. He's actually a senior. He hasn't played, he's played some, but not a whole lot. And then you have Khalil Sanders behind him. So, up front, that's a little, that is the one thing that does kind of worry me is that with Georgia's running game and with that offensive line that they might, Kentucky might have some troubles stopping the run, which they had been doing a really good job of. But then LSU, who had not been running the ball well at all, as you said, actually, ran for like over 150 yards against Kentucky on Saturday.
So this Georgia team can't be contained by Vegas. A couple of weeks ago, they were taking on an undefeated top 10 ranked Georgia or Arkansas team as a 18 or 19 point favorite. They won the game 37-0. And then last week, they were a 15 or 16 point favorite against Auburn on the road,
right.
Beat them by 24 points. So now we've got a 24-point spread against a team as good as Kentucky. So Vegas thinks a lot of Georgia, and it's justified.
Oh, I think it is. I said I'm gonna say Kentucky. I don't say Georgia doesn't cover. So I'm going out on a limb. I say I'm going to say Georgia wins. I want to say something like 27-28-14. That's going to be that's going to be my prediction. I think Kentucky keeps it close for a while, and then I think Georgia eventually, that offensive line, the offensive line will kind of wear the cats down, and then. But I think Kentucky, that Georgia does not cover the spread. Now we'll see. Saturday night about 7:00. We'll see if I'm right. But that's my prediction. So, like I said, most people that I national pundits I have seen, have Georgia, 35-10, 35-13. That seems to be 35-10 somewhere in there seems to be the biggest, the most popular prediction. I don't think I don't think it's going to be that big of a margin, but maybe it's just the blue in me. I don't know, but that's what I'm going with. So.
Perfect segue, Kevin, into our predictions that are available for everybody on Patreon. So what you get from me is you get all the top 25 games plus more, but we also have a little competition between about 20 media members where we're selecting a 12-pack each and every week. So join us on Patreon at the Voice of College Football. So just go to Patreon, search Mark Rogers TV, or you can go down below in the comments or the description section of the videos and just grab the link. Go to Patreon, and we've got a whole lot of stuff offered there, but spotlighting the media members, of which Kevin's a part of the little friendly competition there each and every week.
Yeah, it's been a lot of it's been a lot of fun so far filling those out every week. I think straight up I'm doing fairly well now. Against the spread, I don't think I'm quite
It's
as
tough.
yeah, I'm not quite as doing quite well. Obviously, I'm not doing quite as good as you the last time I checked the stats, but